I've seen nothing like it.
Rocked by memories. Tonight, we travel back in time to 90 years ago as we remember the Great Shake of 1935.
And the lights went out and ladies were screaming.
An earthquake that destroyed buildings, stranded residents, and even claimed lives.
It was very dangerous, big cracks in a brick house, bricks falling off.
Well, we come to you tonight from Helena Middle School, but 90 years ago, it was the brand new Helena High School, and it got off to a shaky start. A series of tremors, some 6.0 and higher in magnitude, rattled the area, almost destroying this building right here. We'll take you over the next 30 minutes to some of the people who lived through it and show you some of the lasting impacts nearly a century on. But before we get into that, let's go back in time to the fall of 1935. Helena has always been seismically active, but no one was ready for the big shake of 1935.
Just all of a sudden, there was a chandelier, and it was swinging, and the lights went out, and ladies were screaming.
Peggy McMahon was almost 4 years old on October 18, 1935. She was at a baby shower when a 6.2 magnitude earthquake rocked Helena at 9:48 p.m.
So I took Jim's hand, he was 2, and we went and hid in the closet.
Helena had been experiencing a number of regular tremors beginning in October 35. Most of them were small, but something bigger was coming. That 6.2 quake lasted only 12 seconds, but it devastated the area. It destroyed hundreds of homes and buildings, including this right here, which at the time was the brand new Helena High School. Now it's Helena Middle School, but after that quake, it was almost completely destroyed. Some people fled the city. Others stayed, living out of their garages and in makeshift tents. In the following weeks, while people repaired damage, the tremors continued. Then, just before noon on October 31st, a powerful 6.0 magnitude aftershock struck. Many of the buildings damaged on October 18th crumbled to the ground.
Entire sides of buildings and houses that are just completely gone, and cars that are covered in the rubble as those walls collapsed out into the street.
Sean Logan is a Helena City Commissioner, former city fire chief, and Helena history buff. He's seen the aftermath of fires, but looking at pictures of the destruction after the earthquake,
I've seen nothing like it.
The damage was extensive. Hundreds of people left homeless. In addition to the high school, Bryant Elementary School was also mostly destroyed. Bryant students were absorbed by other schools, but figuring out what to do with the high schoolers was more difficult. The solution? Donated train cars were turned into a makeshift school where Lindale Avenue is today. In all, damage to this city amounted to more than $4 million. Adjusted for inflation, that's more than $94 million today. It changed architecture across the city.
There are a ton of houses on the west side that you can see. There's a little truncated chimney on the top, but they were probably about 11 feet tall, and they had all kinds of beautiful, brickwork, not just a straight brick. It was, all kinds of, little pediments and things on them. They were gorgeous.
The clock tower at the county courthouse was damaged, then taken down. Brick siding on homes replaced with stucco.
It continues to be what is still there. That's still the finish that they have on them. But that likely was due to cracks in this brick from the earthquakes.
The quake and aftershocks did not just leave visible marks on Helena, they are also seared into the memories of people who lived through them, like former Mayor Steve Keim, who was a kid at the time.
I remember standing in the door of my house. It was very dangerous, big cracks in a brick house, bricks falling off, and then living in the tent.
Today, we prepare for a disaster like what happened in October 1935, from first responders to city officials to kids at school. And 90 years on, it is important to learn about what happened and what Helena and Helenans survived. According to the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, this school was nearly 75% destroyed, and rebuilding took 2 years. Now, the Great Shake of 1935 was, at the time, the 5th most destructive quake in U.S. history, and it fundamentally reshaped how Helena looks today. More than half of all structures in Helena suffered damage from the quake. The 6th ward was one of the hardest areas hit. 300 homes destroyed, 500 people in that neighborhood alone left homeless. Now, so many of you at home shared your stories of family members who lived through the earthquake. MTN's John Riley has been collecting those stories. John.
Thanks, Marion. This mural here on the Walking Mall remembers the devastation of 1935. There's not a lot of people who remember that fateful autumn during the Great Depression, but there still are a couple that we spoke with and you heard from earlier. Most of the stories, though, they've been passed down to their children and grandchildren. Debbie Strandberg's grandparents lived in Unionville at the time, and her grandfather saw a wall collapse on a person while driving back from work. Barbara Wardell told us about Sith Southwick, a firebrand of a woman who documented the event firsthand, including attending school in the rail cars and just how cold it was. Kurt Sinnis's family owned a dance hall called the Shanty in the Valley. The Montana Deaconess boarding school was destroyed during the quake. His family housed the children and staff at the dance hall in the aftermath. Sinnis is a retired reporter with the Helena Independent Record. He has spoken with a number of people over the years who lived through the quakes. He told us what stands out to him is their character and resolve to make it through.
You're not going to whip me. It's going to take more than that, than an earthquake, to get rid of me. So just that stick-to-itiveness and willpower, determination.
Sinnis also shared with us a story about Steve Reeves. He is famous for playing Hercules back in the day. Now, he was just a kid at the time of the quake, and you can find more about that story and other stories that were shared with us on our website. Back to you, Marion.
A common theme in the official reports about the earthquakes in 1935 is Helena was lucky that more people weren't killed due to the large number of buildings that collapsed. But that said, 4 people did die. The first was David Hunter. On October 18, 1935, he was crushed when the front wall of a building on South Main Street collapsed into the street. He's buried in Helena at the Forestvale Cemetery. The second person to die was Charles Sigelink. He had been staying at a homeless shelter at the Lewis and Clark Fairgrounds. He tried to flee the building on the 18th, but was struck by debris near the entrance. He was transported to St. Peter's Hospital and died from his injuries the next morning. The final 2 deaths happened the morning of October 31st, right here at the former Kessler Brewing facility. 2 brick masons from Salt Lake City, Bernard Kennedy and Edward O'Brien, were working at the top of a stack at the facility when the 6.0 aftershock struck. The men were thrown from the structure and killed in the fall. The 1935 earthquake was, at the time, the 5th most destructive earthquake in U.S. history. St. John Hospital was full of patients, and it suffered severe damage. Actually, this is the second St. John Hospital built after the quake. In 1935, the patients here had to be evacuated by candlelight as the walls crumbled around them. It was a traumatic experience for first responders, but lessons were learned, and today, response to an earthquake like that would be much different. MTN's Madeline Heath reports.
Where I'm standing looks a lot different than it did back in 1935. Prior to the earthquake, the City Hall stood right here, but was severely damaged during the event. City services were forced to evacuate with the police department initially operating out of a patrol car parked in a vacant lot until an alternative option was worked out. Now, this raises the question, should another major earthquake happen, how do emergency resources respond?
Preparedness is key.
Helena did not have a dedicated disaster and emergency services department in 1935 like it does today. The agency uses the lessons of the past to prepare for the future.
Knowing which areas were impacted most, city and also the valley, Helena Valley, helps us know what's at risk, what facilities are most likely going to be impacted, and what we need to have ready and in place for when it happens in the future.
The most important role of DES in the immediate aftermath is creating communication between those responding and the people impacted. Emergency alerts would be sent out, temporary shelters and triage facilities would be created as needed. In the case that first responder facilities and equipment are destroyed, surrounding communities, civilian partners, and state resources would come into play.
And then we have a plan in place to make sure that all of our government functions can still continue to work, have the public meetings, make the government decisions that they need to make.
But it is not just agencies and facilities that need to be prepared. You should have a plan too. Having things like a 72-hour go kit at both home and work and a family communication plan are critical.
For sure, make sure that you're in a safe place immediately. The instinct is to run outside, but unfortunately the 1935 earthquakes, fatalities were related to debris falling off the fronts of buildings.
In Helena, most facilities are on generator backup, and power companies are partners in the emergency plan to shut off if need be to limit the risk of fires. Water mains for the city of Helena have earthquake detecting devices to shut off automatically. And if you can, turn off your gas line.
Knowing that earthquakes will impact the area again, we do as much as we can to make sure that our infrastructure is hardened for it, our responsibility is planned for, and we really need the population to also have their preparedness in line and be ready.
Reporting in Helena, Madeline Heath, MTN News.
Welcome back to the news at 5. We join you now from the 6th Ward. This area was one of the hardest hit in the 1935 earthquake, and it was devastated in the subsequent aftershocks. Our science guys, aka meteorologists Curtis Grevenitz and Joey Bianconi, look at what's perhaps out of sight, out of mind beneath our feet.
Helena is a seismically active area, experiencing hundreds of earthquakes a year, although many are too small for us to feel.
But why is that? What makes this area so prone to tremors? I spoke with Dr. Patricia Heiser with Carroll College to get some answers.
What causes earthquakes here for the most part?
It's complicated. Montana is very complicated.
She's not wrong. Some of the most complex geology in the country is located right beneath our feet. Helena is located within the northern part of the Intermountain Seismic Belt, which contains hundreds of faults of various sizes. There are several of these faults located in and around the Helena Valley.
These faults here are strike slip or transform faults, so they're like the San Andreas. So the sense of motion is this way.
Think of it kind of like a zipper. You have two parts of Earth being held together by the friction of the materials, like the teeth of that zipper. But you push on those pressure points long enough, and they'll eventually give.
Now, when talking about earthquakes, we need to discuss magnitude, or the amount of energy released, which is measured on the Richter scale.
So the 2017 earthquake in Lincoln registered a 5.8 magnitude. And for this demonstration, let's just say that's throwing a 10-yard pass. Joey, hit me.
Because the scale is exponential, the 6.2 magnitude earthquake in 1935 was about 2.5 times stronger than this one, or a 25-yard pass. Curtis?
All right, the 1959 Hebgen Lake earthquake, Montana's strongest ever recorded, was a 7.5 on the Richter scale. That would have been 50 times stronger than the Lincoln quake back in 2017. All right, for demonstration, Joey, go long, real long. And that quake would have been like throwing this football 5 football fields in length. The duration of the quake and the material of the ground also play a huge factor. Parts of the Helena Valley sit on solid rock, while others rest on a bed of gravel and other looser rocks.
If you step on sand at the beach, when you stomp on it for a while, it'll start to cave and collapse. So that's almost probably more related to duration than just the magnitude.
For more information about the science of earthquakes and the ways it has shaped Helena, check out our article online. For MTN, I'm Joey Bianconi.
And I'm Curtis Grevenitz.
As we told you, the 1935 earthquake damaged hundreds of buildings across Helena, including this one, the old Montana Deaconess School, and it has stood abandoned ever since. MTN's Jessica Nelson shows us lessons learned in the wake of the quake.
Building techniques have significantly changed in the last 90 years. When designing a new structure or making upgrades to existing ones, architects and engineers now prepare for the potential impact of earthquakes.
Most of Montana is seismically active. Although, luckily we don't get a lot of large earthquakes, we have to plan for the worst.
One of the main reasons there was so much damage back in 1935 came down to how buildings were made, the material and the techniques used at that time. Many were built with unreinforced brick and would shake apart during earthquakes. It's hard to plan for a big earthquake, and oftentimes it takes an event like 1935 to drive change and innovation.
Every time there's a new earthquake and a lot of damage occurs, engineers go in and assess what worked and what didn't work, and the industry kind of evolves that way with our knowledge base and understanding.
Although hundreds of buildings were destroyed during the Big Shake, many survived and were repaired. But as the years go on, upgrades often need to be made. Central School here in downtown Helena is a more recent example of when a building had to be replaced or repaired due to seismic concerns. Now, the previous building had to be evacuated after a study confirmed that it was at risk for catastrophic failure should a significant earthquake occur. SMA designed the new building after the decision was made to replace the school.
When we got involved and watched the demolition of that building, it came down so much faster than I think anybody anticipated.
These days, buildings are designed much differently. Modern construction uses more steel and reinforced materials, which hold up a lot better when the ground starts to shake. Damage from a major earthquake is almost impossible to avoid. Builders today focus on keeping people safe. That means reinforcing stairwells and securing anything overhead so it won't come crashing down during a quake.
I have 2 kids in the school district here in Helena. It really makes me happy knowing that they're going to go into a school or go into a structure that I know could withstand a seismic event or can withstand any loads that the environment throws at it.
With photographer John Riley, I'm Jessica Nelson for MTN News.
Before we leave you tonight, I want to take you to one more spot, this Helena landmark. It's a symbol of resilience, but it's also something we almost lost in the earthquake of 1935. The Helena Fire Tower has seen it all, weathering each disaster as they come. It was heavily damaged in the quake of 1935, but restored. 90 years later, it still stands, a symbol of what this city has overcome as it continues to march onward to the future. We've got a lot more coverage about the earthquake of 1935, including photos and film from 90 years ago. You can find all of that on our website, ktvh.com. On behalf of all of us at KTVH News, thank you so much for watching. Have a great evening.